Good afternoon and welcome to Voices of Faith Transforming the Community. The mission of Saginaw African American Pastors, the purpose of Saginaw African American Pastors, and the program that Saginaw African American Pastors engages in every week by virtue of this radio station and Facebook. And those of you who are watching us live and watching this broadcast live, we recorded it, pre-recorded, but we're here in the station at KISS 107, and SAP, Saginaw African American Pastors, is a group of Christian faith group that's dedicated to addressing racial, social, and economic justice at all levels in the Saginaw County region. We do it with faith, we do it with strength, and we do it with boldness. We do it to ensure that racial equity is the experience of all citizens in Saginaw County. We engage, we advocate, and we collaborate. We engage in intentional conversations with leaders, and we advocate for systemic changes, and we collaborate with community and faith-based organizations. My name is Hurley Coleman. I'm the pastor of World Outreach Campus Church, and Bishop Hurley Coleman, some people call me, well, I guess a lot of people call me that now because I am a bishop.
Yes, you are.
But I'm serving as the president of Saginaw African American Pastors, and I am following a great pastor who led us in our early days, Pastor Craig Tatum. And every time we go through the introduction, I think about him and the work that he put in to actually formalize this. So different from time to time, there will be different individuals who will host this program, and I'm happy to be one of those ones that's doing it now. Today with me, I'm going to be interviewing someone that many people already know, and I want to introduce to some and present to others one of the most dynamic young pastors that we have in the Saginaw area region. And this region includes Midland Bay and Saginaw counties and the communities that are attached to that. My guest today is none other than Pastor Reverend Marcel Smith. He is the present pastor of the historic Second Baptist Church in Bay City, and he's also serving as the pastor of the 9th Street Community Church in Saginaw. He's doing a tremendous job. I've known him since he came to Saginaw. Pastor Smith, how are you doing today?
Doing very well. Grateful to be here with you. Thank you for opportunity for you and I to have a conversation publicly. It's like we always do.
Like we always do. Most people don't know it, but if they were to bump into us in public or private settings anywhere else, they might hear you call me Unc, because since you and your family, your father and mother came to this town, we have had a close relationship, and I consider you part of my extended family.
Yes,
how you
sir.
doing, man?
I'm doing well. Grateful.
Now, you were 13 when your family came.
Yes, sir.
Talk about your family and how you got here.
Yes, sir. Family and I came here in 1998, fall of 1998. I started school at Ricker Middle School the Monday after Thanksgiving break. My father started pastoring Mount Olive Baptist Church here in Saginaw the 4th Sunday in October of 1998, and we were still transitioning, moving, and we all got here right before Thanksgiving. And then I started school at Ricker. Marche started school at Clater, I think it was, and then Mackenzie wasn't born until January 9th of 1999. And so that's when we got here. That's how we got here. Got through the Mount Olive Church, called my father, to be senior pastor of Mount Olive. And we came with him. Mm-hmm. And I've been here pretty much ever since, other than going away to school a couple of times. And as far as I can discern, I'm going to be here. This is home. I was born in Louisiana. We lived in Tennessee, I think about 10 years of my life. We have great relationships with people in Nashville, extended family. Most of my biological family still lives in Louisiana, and they're home in their own ways, but Saginaw is home.
And you
Michigan is home.
also have an uncle who's a pastor here.
Yes, my uncle is Roderick Smith. He's the proud pastor, be 25 years in May, of Zion Missionary Baptist Church. They moved here shortly after we did, I think a year or two after we did. He, my Aunt Irma Jean, and my cousin Angela.
Yeah, I remember my first year as pastor. My father passed away in 2001, and I started pastoring here in Saginaw, and my official start date was August of 2001. And so it will be 25 years for me this year.
August, yeah.
Yeah. So he and I came to Saginaw right around the same time. So we've got a lot of experiences, man. A lot of you and I, your family, your father and I were fraternity brothers. Now you are fraternity brother.
Yes,
my
sir.
son is fraternity brother. It's
Yes,
kind of
sir.
a unique.
And your
connection.
daughter and my wife are
That's right.
sorority sisters.
That's right. And your mother.
And my mother and my sisters and my mother-in-law, my grandmother, cousins, everything.
It's a lot of connections. What do you think about community as it relates to faith and church?
Community is what I believe Jesus always wanted us to have. When we look at Jesus extending the first invitation to follow him, it was individual and collective all at the same time. We have to all individually make that decision. But the benefit and blessing of it is that we get a community that starts with him.
Yeah.
But we're blessed with people so that all of our needs are able to be met. And it's not just physical needs and material needs, but we're spiritual beings first, but we're social beings, we're emotional beings, we're mental beings. And so we need community to feed us in every area of our lives. We need encouragement, we need support. Quite frankly, we need hugs. We need physical social interaction for our well-being. We even know, you're a singer, so you know this better than I do. I just read about it. But even when we sing together, there are benefits to our physical, mental, and emotional parts of our bodies. I know I read before that when we sing together, it helps our blood pressure be regulated and our heartbeat sync and things of that nature. And so in every area of our lives, every part of our being, we can see the need for community.
And there is no better example for community than church. Yeah. And I encourage people all the time that, if you got a doctor and you got a lawyer, you need to have a priest. You need to have a faith leader in your life, and you need to have your doctor operates out of office. When you go to the doctor's appointment, you go to the doctor's office. You don't go meet the dentist in the aisle at the store and get, no, you got to go to the dentist's office. And it makes sense to have a church that you're connected to and that your family's connected to. You, much like our children, my wife and I, our children have the benefit of growing up in church, and growing up around people. My career, I was a Parks and Recreation leader. I worked in Parks and Recreation here in Saginaw and in Saginaw County. My career took me to Wayne County in Parks and Recreation. And I've always said that one of the benefits of recreation program is the fact that young people have an opportunity to be in the company of caring adults in moments when they need social development that doesn't come from their parents. And another place that happens is church, because when you grow up in church, man, everybody can interact with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we need that village. I have extended parents. I have extended grandparents. I got cousins. I got brothers and sisters that came from the body of Christ. Been growing up here at Mount Olive, growing up in our district association, growing up in Mount Hopewell in Nashville. And then even once I grew up and I went away to school, there are people who became extended family, community of faith church I went to in Tallahassee, Florida when I was an undergrad, and then Mount Zion Baptist Church in Nashville when I was in seminary. And each and every time, God has shown me um, the care and love of God
Yeah.
through those people, through those churches. Sometimes it was just the social aspect that I was just talking about. Other times, you know, didn't know how or what I was going to eat, and God stepped in through those people.
Yep.
Other resources that I needed. Again, it came through the church, and we need that village
So
again
you went
more
to
than we realize until we
you
get older.
you got your undergrad degree in Florida. What college?
Went to Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University.
Florida A&M.
Yep, I got my bachelor's and master's of business administration there.
Florida A&M. Story HBCU.
Yes, sir.
That was an experience, wasn't it?
It was and is a gift that keeps on giving. Um, my parents graduated from Southern University, and then all of my aunts and uncles on my mother's side of the family, and most of my cousins on my mother's side of the family are graduates of Grambling State University. Have another uncle on my father's side who graduated from Southern, and a cousin on my mom's side who also graduated from Southern. And so I'd always been around those two HBCUs. And then when we lived in Nashville, I was frequently at Tennessee State because I started playing football when I was 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends, his father, is one of the most famous alums of the Tennessee State football program. So I went to their games. Whenever they had a home game, I was there on the sideline. So I was always around it. Always wanted to go to an HBCU, planned to go to Grambling or Jackson State. And the only reason I wanted to go there was family, and I could be close to my grandparents.
Mhm.
And I'm sure we'll talk about my grandparents as well, because that's a piece of my ministry too. Um, but then my parents wanted me to choose my own path. And I'm grateful for that they didn't make me go to Southern or make me go anywhere else. They allowed me to discern. They told me to pray about it, and they took me to visit all of the campuses of the schools that I was interested in, and I thank God for blessing them to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more of the village of that when I was in Kudos and other people in our lives too. But I thank my parents for doing that. And when I went to visit FAMU, because I was going to Grambling,
Mm-hmm.
point blank period, and then briefly I considered going to Jackson State just to be close to my grandparents. So I can go fishing with my granddaddy
Mm-hmm.
every weekend and eat my grandmother's cooking every weekend.
Mm.
But my mom and my dad, they were insistent that since FAMU was on my list, that I needed to visit to make sure. And when I went to visit FAMU, walking on that campus, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that's where God intended me to go. And to this day, every day of my life since then, the friends that God gave me, the brothers that God gave me on that campus, we communicate on a daily basis.
Wow.
Their children are my nieces and nephews. Our sons are their nephews. And don't just the best decision. One of the best decisions I made in my life was following the Lord's lead and going to FAMU, being exposed academically to the African diaspora as well, because there were people that looked like you and I from literally all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
classmates, professors, administrators, then the culture with the athletics and the band. And I got exposed to all kind of different foods and things as well. Got to visit places never thought I would, never had in my mind to visit, experiences I wouldn't have had I not been connected with the people I'm connected with from matriculating through there. So it's just amazing experience.
What you describe is the experience that most people that I know that went to a historically black college or university have, that it was a unique cultural experience as well as a unique academic experience.
Absolutely.
And lifelong. You talk about family a lot, and I love that because you believe, like I believe, that God is a God of generations.
Mm-hmm.
We read the Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So take a few minutes. We've got about maybe 6 or 7 minutes before we take a break. So take a few minutes and talk about the generations of Smith that you hold so dear.
Okay. And I also talk about my Anderson Abraham side of the family too. Definitely, just in general, I appreciate the family that God has given me. We don't get to choose our DNA. God does it for us. And I'm grateful to be a Smith. I'm grateful to be Anderson Abraham. And just in general, I love that in terms of American soil, we are from North Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the food, absolutely the food.
The food.
The food. But I love hunting and fishing, and I used to go down there pretty much every summer. My sisters and I, we would spend the summers in Louisiana. I got to go hunting and fishing with my grandfather, do the gardening and farming with my grandparents. Just be spoiled by my grandparents, to be honest, and go down to South Louisiana and stay with some cousins and get exposed to all of that piece. In fact, when I first went to college, I had the goal of living in New Orleans after I graduated, but then Hurricane Katrina happened and that began to change some things. But just in general, I love my family. Even to this day, my wife will tell you this too. She knows that my geographic place of peace is sitting on my grandparents' porch, my mother's home that she grew up in Bienville Parish, Louisiana. Just sitting on that porch and being able to go hunting, even if I don't get to harvest the deer, just being in the woods, being able to go fishing down there. It's just geographically, it just automatically, it gives me peace. And then being with my family, and thankfully our sons they have that as well. And then in terms of church, in terms of ministry, on both sides of my family, I come from a family of pastors and preachers.
Mm.
Yes, my father and my uncle, but then I have cousins on the Smith side that are also pastors in Louisiana and Texas now. On my mother's side, and I just found this out within the last several years. I knew my grandfather was a pastor, but then two or three of his brothers, and so was my great grandfather. And the church that many of them pastored is right across the street from my grandparents' home and property.
How about that?
And so I've been blessed to preach at that church twice. And that is one of the most rewarding experiences that I've had the opportunity to stand where my grandfather, my great uncles, and my great grandfather all stood to preach. And the first time it was really emotional for me because I was standing there and looking out the window from the pulpit. I can see where my grandfather's buried.
Wow.
And so family means so much to me. Much to me.
It defines, it defines, it refines, and it helps us to be grounded, to know how and where our family came from. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I want people in our community to understand the richness. I had an incredible conversation with Pastor Tatum a few weeks ago, last week, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And he and our families grew up down the street from each other in Saginaw. So one of my brothers and sisters went to school with one of his brothers and sisters, and his family, he comes from a line of a family of preachers on both sides. And my father was a pastor, but his father was one of the deacons in the church that he grew up in in Tennessee. And they used to talk about him, Lucian Coleman, who could call the hymns, man. He would call them hymns out. So I mean, it's rich to be able to hold on to and know that you're a part of something that extends much beyond you, and then that you can share that with your son. I want to talk about your son, man, because one of the greatest blessings of my life was when your dad called me up and said, "I need you to come over and Christian bless us and do the dedication for now my grandnephew, that was an experience for me,
Mm-hmm.
and how beautiful it is to see how he has grown, and then now are developing, you and your beautiful wife. This is we're talking to Pastor Marcel Smith, who is, if when you all listen to him, you listen to him from the depth of his own experiences, but you're getting a sense of why God calls people like him, men like him, people like him to serve our community so that our community can have the cultural depth and the spiritual depth of the fabric that makes our community weave together. And we've got more to talk about. I'm excited to be able to talk to him. This is the Saginaw African American Pastors um, Transforming Lives program, and we're going to be back in just a few minutes. We're going to take a quick break, but I appreciate Matthew Lester, our engineer. I appreciate the station for making room for us to do this. And every week, I need you to talk about it. I need you who are watching to talk about it, because these are your pastors, these are your leaders, and you need to be comfortable knowing who it is that God has sent to us to serve in our community. Again, my name is Pastor Hurley Coleman, and this Pastor Marcel Smith, and we're going to be back with you in just a few moments to talk some more. Welcome back to Voices of Faith Transforming the Community, the program that's led by Saginaw African American pastors. And my name is Bishop Hurley J. Coleman, pastor World Outreach Campus. And my guest today is none other than Pastor Marcel Smith, historic Second Baptist in Bay City and 9th Street Community Church. We've been talking about him, about his life. It's really interesting to see how God does things. And he been here. You've been here most of your life now.
Been here 27 years now. Yeah.
27 years. So, Brother Smith, talk about your family, man.
Yeah, 27 years. I'm a husband and a father, married to Jennifer Smith.
One of the sweetest young ladies, and
yes, indeed,
and her mom. I mean, good family,
great family. She is an educator and a writer. She teaches 11th grade English at Saginaw United High School, which is a blessing not only to her but to me in a number of ways, particularly with some of the commitments that I have even as a pastor. We have two sons, Josiah, who you were just talking about, that you
I was so blessed
dedicated.
I was so blessed to be a part of that dedication.
He is 13 years old. He is an 8th grader at Saginaw Arts and Sciences Academy.
A miracle baby.
He is a walking miracle, and we can talk about that if you want to. He is a walking miracle, doing things that he was told he would never do. Mm-hmm. We were told he would never do, and we know that's all God doing that in his life, and using him in some way. Then we also have a 7-year-old, Jabari. He is a first grader. He's 7 going on 17, but he's a first grader at Jesse Rouse Elementary School here in Saginaw.
I get a kick out of watching you and your son and my son and his son, and we fathers being your dad, and our wives and the parents of our children. We watch them as they grow up, and I get a kick out of watching y'all watch y'all's kids grow up like we watched y'all. I think it's important that you talk about why you think that there's a great future here for you and your family.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Every time I've gone away to school, both times I've gone away to school. Again, I initially, when I went to undergrad, said I was going to move to New Orleans. Katrina happened, and that was the beginning of me being prayerful about, okay, I want to have a family. I want to be somewhere long term. That's always been in me to do something long term, not to hop around and all of that. That's just not how God created me. And so I began to pray about it and discern I was to come home. Initially, I thought it was to work in sports and all of that, but ultimately discern ministry. So even then, Um, understood I wasn't just called to preach, but to pastor. And I knew that because I didn't understand it at the time, but God sent me to business school intentionally so that I would be prepared to do some aspects of pastoral work
It's
that are
just the
beyond the pulpit.
administration side.
Absolutely. And I understood when I discerned called to preach that it was also called to full-time ministry and long-term to pastor. And then God connected me with people, beginning with Reverend Roosevelt Austin Sr., um, who were pastors
Mm-hmm.
in their heart.
Mm-hmm.
And to have the
Community
heart of a
pastor.
pastor means community.
Yep.
It means being engaged politically, maybe not necessarily in running for office, but really prophetically, not telling the future per se,
Right.
but speaking truth to power
That's it.
and making sure that there's always a voice present to give direction to, or to give our political leaders an opportunity to have the right direction so that politics is used as a means of grace.
I've
And
said this.
so,
I've said this on a number of occasions because sometimes people will say, "Well, where are the pastors? Where are the pastors? How can the pastors not doing that?" Every pastor does not have the same level, the same kinds of calling and
mhm,
ministry and inclination. You and I have this part of us that is incredibly community oriented.
mhm,
It's because of not only our DNA, but because what we've been developed into and what we were called to. And there were 11 apostles living at the time that Jesus ascended and sent them to Jerusalem to wait for the promise so that the church could be established. And after the day of Pentecost, those now 12 became the foundation of the church that we know it as, from scripture that we know it as, that um, included a lot of different work. Early administration in the church work was when the deacons were formed, and that was just to make sure that they served inside.
mhm.
But none of those who were re- actually walking and talking with Jesus,
They
and
spread out and
they
they did
spread
so
out,
many
but
different
none of those
things.
had the same calling
None
as
of them.
Apostle Paul,
None of them.
because his was definitely church development, church growth. So I don't, I don't criticize pastors if they don't have the same
Right.
motivation that I have. Like you say that you were exposed to Reverend Austin. Well, Reverend Austin, my father was like,
Mhm.
they were like two peas in the
Mhm.
pod. They were actually engaged, and all of the pastors weren't at the level engaged where they
Right.
were, but they had an opportunity to
Absolutely.
lead.
And they
So
complemented each other.
and so here you are now, and you're working in the same frame. There's others who, like us, who see not only our role in the pulpit and in our local church, but also in the larger
Yeah,
dynamic.
absolutely. And that plays into, you asking about my family. I'm grateful that my wife is an educator. I didn't, thankfully, God knew better than me about who I needed in my life in that regard. And literacy is so important in all of life. You and I couldn't do what we do if the people didn't could not understand what we were saying when
That's
we
right.
say it. And the things we're involved in with Christian education and beyond, literacy is so important. And that is one of the things that is a part of her heart and her mission. And so that complements, she and I complement each other even in that regard. We complement each other in other ways too. But in terms of what we have a desire to do in the community, that's a big piece. Literacy in general, yes, literacy when it comes to the Bible and all of that, particularly as we're in Black History Month.
Mm-hmm.
Literacy about history, general
Really.
history, but also biblical history,
Mm-hmm.
because we see throughout biblical history, Africa, we see what we now refer to as the Middle East, which is really the ancient Near
Mm-hmm.
East. And we see so many different areas being touched, even from the very beginning of Scripture. And so, literacy is a major piece of that. And literacy then falls into so many different areas. And one of the areas that is extremely important to me is food apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we use the language of food insecurity, we use the language of food deserts and all of that. But food apartheid is really what it is, because what happens is not an accident.
Right.
Where grocery stores are versus fast food
Yep.
restaurants is not an accident.
Yep.
Where access to healthy foods, fruits, vegetables, good produce, the lines that go from farm to table, those things are not an accident. Those are intentional things. And I don't even like using food desert. I like using the term food mirage. And that
Mm-hmm.
came from Reverend Dr. Heber Brown III, who does food justice work across this country. He is based out of Baltimore, Maryland, because it's not that we don't know where food is. It's that certain people, because of race, ethnicity, social standing, even geographical location, economics, don't have access to
Right.
it, can't get to it.
Right.
And so I've been working with a couple of groups in Saginaw's Food Access Collaboration Team. In Bay County, it's the Bay County Food Connection, to try to eliminate those barriers, not just navigate them, but eliminate those barriers. And I'm grateful that here in Saginaw, we have it's more than a grocery store. We have the Saginaw Food Club and Kitchen opening this year in the
Mm-hmm.
fall, that is not only going to help provide food, but also education about how to prepare foods. Yes, in healthy ways, but ways that it also tastes good.
Yeah.
Because there's some minor substitutions we can do
That's right.
with different things, and it still tastes like Big Mama, Grandmama made it,
But it's healthy.
but it's healthier.
Yeah.
And then it's also, it gives access, because it's not just going to be using money. There's another way that people will be able to get the food, learn about the food, be taught about not only preparing the food, but growing their own food, and also continuing to try to, and this is one of the goals I have, continuing to try to connect people, organizations, nonprofits, and yes, churches, so that throughout the county, throughout the region, we can get healthy food to each other and share it
Often
to
when
do it.
I'm talking to people like this, and you're a perfect example of it, I like to just kind of listen to them and allow them to talk so that their heart can be exposed. The Bible says, from the abundance of a heart, man speaks. And when you're free to just talk, there's themes that come back. My father told me a long time ago, he said, if you listen to preachers, you'll hear that every preacher has a basic theme for his ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And it recurs in every message. There's some people that you hear them preach, and every message, at least once somewhere in the message, something's gonna come up.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed in my life, in my ministry, that I rarely ever get through a message without saying something about Romans 8:28,
Mm-hmm.
and without connecting faith. So I'm a
Mm-hmm.
faith and providence preacher that says that by faith, all things are going to work out for good to them that love God. So the providence of God is at work. And here I'm listening to you, and it's in your heart. You've been talking about family, you've been talking about connection, and you've been talking about quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
And in essence, it's in your heart that people not only live in a good location, but that they live well, and that they
Mm-hmm.
live healthy, and they live with an understanding of why that is.
Mm-hmm.
So in your future, in the future that Marcel Smith, Reverend Dr. Marcel Smith, sees for the community that you serve, what is it that you see God showing us about what we need to do to prepare for the future? We just
Well,
came through an incredible election period
Mm-hmm.
for in the primary. We
Mm-hmm.
learned so much, and I hope people paid attention, because there was so much that was revealed to us about what we have to do for our own destiny.
Mm-hmm. You know, you talk about the things and messages, and some people would say that social justice is the theme of it, and I just think it's the example that Jesus set for us. We see when he's in the upper room in Matthew 25, he talks about what his sheep do, and those sheep will be in heaven with him for eternity. And that's all I'm trying to do, is to be a part of that list that he gave, with clothing people, giving clean water to people, housing to people, that if people are incarcerated, it should be to rehabilitate them, not just to punish them.
Yeah.
So on and so forth. And I believe that the food justice, to dealing with food apartheid, is the beginning of it, because it takes education to deal with those things. So that's literacy, right? We
Right.
just talked about literacy, and
Right.
there's that tie.
Right.
But in order for people to have that access to food, then there's some things that needs to change in the systemic and systematic isms that we deal with, right? So that's some of the other aspects of it. If you're eating healthy food, then you're going to be healthier physically, emotionally, and mentally. So
Right.
now we're connected to mental health.
Right.
To change all of these things, there needs to be community. There needs to be collaboration. So then that's social, but that's also dealing with justice, and it's going to take changing things politically and otherwise. So all of that is connected. And so if people want to call me that, I'm cool with that. And related to that, for the future,
yeah,
I'm grateful that it appears that there are attempts to have a more solidified infrastructure. You know, we've been hit hard here in this region since 2008, when the automobile industry completely changed, because that was the center of our infrastructure. Whereas now I foresee something that probably will last longer is education, primarily with Delta College and Saginaw Valley being a big, pretty much the center of it, but then also medically. And that's what I'm grateful just to be a part of. It's not just me. I can't do this by myself. I don't want to do it by myself. I like going on vacation with my family. I still like fishing. I still like hunting. I still like having time to do that. I like taking my sons to school every day and picking them up and all of that. And therefore, I have enough sense. And sometimes I learn the hard way not to try to do anything by myself. So that goes back to where we started. We need community. And so I foresee, and I really believe this, because early on in my discerning some things and expressing concerns to God about the church and the way things seem to be going, particularly with my generation, that scripture about the gates of hell will not prevail against my church came back to me. And then I heard God's voice saying, you're going to see the power of my gospel. And in that, I now have come to a place where I believe optimistically, and it's not just pie in the sky. I believe that we have an amazing future, that God is going to perform some miracles in every aspect of our being, and that this is going to be an amazing region. We already see the eyes of the country and the world on us politically, but I believe the eyes of the world and the country are going to be on us for some other reasons because of the work we're going to do.
You mentioned something that is very, very sensitive in my heart, and that is that so many places are paying attention to Saginaw. Our region is not forgotten by God, even though it may be overlooked. We are a critical measurement of and gauge of things that are to come. And I talked about the fact that we just had a political environment, a political season here. The Saginaw African American pastors had called for a unity prayer rally the just before the election, and then we still feel like that our desire for us to be unified and be clear on our approach to serving our community is critical. And I think we got to stay with that. I think we got to stay open to that and be prepared to come together, because unity is everything.
We have to not only pray, but we got to work. Prayer comes first, but Jesus never tells us only to pray. There's always going to be, from that prayer, opportunities to be God's arms and legs, hands and feet. But as you said earlier, it starts in the heart. And so we got to do some introspection. We have to do some personal praying, and then be committed to doing some personal and public prayer.
Jesus said,
a practice, I should say.
Jesus said we got to pray enough. Men, I'll always pray and not faint. Well, he wasn't talking about fainting while you're praying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't get weary from pain. You get weary in well doing. That's
Absolutely.
the part that we got. Um,
Absolutely.
Brother Smith, let me. We're getting close to the end. Time just goes so fast when I'm talking to people who just got so much to say. But if we get ready to close this conversation out, I want to ask you to give me from your heart um, the thing that you would really like to see happen. Let's start with the faith community. What
Mm-hmm.
would you really like to see happen with the faith community? And then tell me what you would really like to see within the broader community of Saginaw.
In the faith community, I would like to see us stop competing with each other. And that's not to say everybody competes, but if we're honest, there's some competition in the faith community when in reality we on the same team. We have the same goal, supposed to have the same Lord. Um, and so I want to see not only in Saginaw and Bay City, Midland, but across the world. Um, and it starts with following the biblical Jesus.
Yeah.
That's where it starts. A lot of the competition and division is rooted in people following an Americanized Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts with following the biblical Jesus. So that's what I want to see ultimately with the faith community, because we're supposed to lead the world. And
Yeah.
if that, we're supposed to lead.
Yeah.
And if that happens, then some of the things we all want to see otherwise in the community in general will take place, because we'll be following the biblical Jesus, and we'll be doing everything. And I think that's important, because there's a reason there are people who don't want to hear scripture, don't want to hear sermons, don't want to come to church, so on and so forth. And that is because they don't see us being the church. They see us talking.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see us walking as much. And so if we walk as the faith community and we just be the church, then that will lead people into wanting to hear about Jesus.
Wow, that couldn't be a better close for a conversation than that kind of a challenge from my friends, my brothers and sisters, the audience of this, ladies and gentlemen. You have just experienced a conversation with the young man who I think has the potential to be one of the greatest spiritual leaders that we're ever going to experience in our history, Pastor Marcel Smith. I'm excited to be connected with him. I'm excited that he's a part of the Second African American Pastors, and the encouragement is that if you're in his demographic, and you're a pastor, he needs you at the table with him. Just as we sit down and talk, because we got so much to do, so much more to do, so much more to say. As a matter of fact, I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to bring you back, or somebody's going to have to bring you back. There's a lot that we didn't cover,
I'll be glad to come back.
but we've got so much ahead of us. I want to thank you again, Pastor Smith, for coming, and my love to you and your family. I want to thank each of you for watching. We're going now. Time has run out. God bless you,
Yeah.
and God keep you.